Right, here we are then. This is our fourth? Is it the third, Marcus? Do you know if it's our third or fourth?
It's the fourth.
Is it the fourth?
Fourth one we've done.
It's the fourth. Break Free. Is it Sobriety Society?
Yes.
Yeah. It's our fourth podcast, and this is probably the most exciting one that I've looked forward to, haven't we? We've been trying to get this one nailed down for ages, haven't we?
My fault.
Yeah. Man of the world.
I think the frustrating thing for me more than anything is coming in here like this afternoon and everyone's got a better tan than me. You're looking superb, Marco's on fire, and Garth looks like he's just come off his holiday. Where have you been?
Is this the only real one in here though? This is the only real
one. Yours is a proper tan, isn't it? Real vitamin D. Mine's a tenner in Tenerife.
Tenner. You're not paying that much.
9 minutes in Tenerife, man. So yeah, we're made up. How are you boys?
All good, mate.
Good, yeah. I mean, I don't know if we... Do you want to intro it, Mark? Two people that have actually been through the programme. That's the first time on a podcast that we've done this, isn't it?
I think the motivation behind us starting the podcasts was for this reason. So if anyone's following the socials, the thing that gets the most interactions and inspires people the most is people's stories who's been through the programmes. And we have another one, the before and afters. Like we were speaking before, Mark, about the post that you've done today and how much interaction we get. Now, that's just from reading a message and looking at a photo. So I think what we were speaking about is, look, we've got hundreds of testimonials, people's success stories, people who successfully beat their addiction. And it lands differently when the person talks, tells the story. So the motivation behind the podcast initially wasn't, it was to get people on, share the stories, and rather than just reading it, because they have such a good impact anyway, but it's more inspiring actually getting the people on, the emotion in them actually sharing the story.
How do you guys feel about actually, because it's not easy to come on a podcast to start with of any sort, like, is it? I've just said to you, I'm quite nervous about the podcast. You were like to me before, well, what are we introing this? What are we doing? Like, but for two guys who've been through a programme who are obviously now really loud and proud about the recovery, so they to be willing to sit and discuss addiction when you've just come through a programme, I think is mightily, mightily brave.
How do you feel? Is there any nerves?
Not really, no, because I wanted to be out there and spread the awareness, like you said.
Brilliant.
I remember, how do you feel? Any nerves? No?
Not really.
You're cool characters, you two.
I know, yeah. We're more nervous than them.
Well, what's going on? Yeah, you've been to the programme, so you've seen me talk, like I can talk about addiction. And when the first time we done the podcast, my head fell off. I was so conscious of the fact that people would be watching what I'm saying that I was sort of overthinking what I was be talking about.
Yeah.
It didn't really flow properly. I was so nervous. And you two were just sitting there like...
Do you know, like, that's why I asked that question, because it's like, I know daunting it can be, and for them to both sit here today and be willing to share the story on a podcast, it will gain really big momentum. You know, this podcast, it is going to hit a little bit different, this one.
It's bringing awareness to the ketamine.
Yeah.
Well, I think what I put a video out the other day, where about a year ago we done a video around bringing awareness to the ketamine issue, which is just horrendous. I think even they're looking at it now, it's like it's increasing, like the people, hospital admissions and stuff was up by 85%, I think. So even though there's a massive amount of awareness around the problem, it's still increasing. But what, as I was saying to you, the lads outside, there's a lot of awareness around the problem, but there's not much hope or belief around it. I haven't really seen any success, and you can call it a success story, but someone who's been in the battle, who's been in the grips of the addiction, but managed to get through it. There's so many people who are losing their lives. Emotional saying that.
Losing the health.
Losing the health, the bladders themselves. And it's important that we try and, because regardless of whether you bring awareness, say for example me and you, if someone would have said to you, they'd have told me I'd have ended up the state I'd have been in, I'd have gone, what happened to me? You're very naive, aren't you, at the start? So even though there's a lot of awareness around the ketamine addiction now, people are still taking it, certainly because of the age demographic as well, as there's a lot of young people taking it, so they are a bit like, it won't happen to me.
You know what, Mark? Like, when I very first took ketamine, my dad had said to me, he was like, you take drugs, this'll happen, that'll happen, all these things we're speaking about. I was thinking of, whatever. And then further down the line, every single thing you warned me about happened.
Because I think it's the same with any addict. Anyone, when you take your first drink or drug, none of us set out to end up in addiction, and you probably would have said at the time, I won't. That won't happen to me. So even though there's so much awareness around the problem, it's not deterring people from taking the drug. So I think this message today is more about, regardless of trying to deter people from it, there's God knows how many people who are actually actively stuck in a ketamine addiction now. So for the people who are, we need to try and give them a little bit of hope and belief that there is a solution, because everything I'm reading is just like
horror stories. Yeah, and I think maybe a good place to start with the boys is as you've just said, you know, our program's all about real rational thinking, you know, and it's quite scientific in a sense. But as you said, when you first started drinking and taking drugs, my use was social use. We say this, like, as you say, when I first started drinking and using cocaine, I was psychotic and paranoid and sat in the house for days and I couldn't breathe and I was having palpitations and I was arguing and fighting and losing me wife and me children and all my businesses. And if that was what happened straight away, I wouldn't have continued. So it's important people hear people say my use was social. It was socially using. I didn't have any responsibilities then either, and what came with that was not many consequences at the start. My use developed into abuse, which developed into an addiction where there was no enjoyment. It was just pain. But where, Marco, did your use start, and how did it develop then?
So my use started, I was first introduced to ketamine. I remember the first time I was in a house party. I was drinking first, and then I got introduced to that. And it was cheap at the time. It's cheaper than other drugs. That's another issue that you've got with it. So I had it, and about a week later I had it again, thought nothing of it. Within a month or two, I was using it on my own in my room, and then I was bringing things wrong, like in work, bringing the wrong tools back. Lost jobs, lost everything. So within 3 months, my use become abuse. It didn't start like that, though. It started like yours, just out with your mates, drinking. And then before you know it, you got introduced to drugs, and it's abuse then. You're in addiction. Just caused nothing but issues along the way.
At what point did you go from, as you said, use could be in social circles, it could be out, as we quote these words, parties or nightclubs or whatever social circles it is. And obviously now, I mean, I get a lot of messages. I actually went to sit in a mother's house who reached out to me about a 13-year-old son who was using ketamine in schools now. That's the level this has gone to. But it's interesting to hear how quickly social use in a party with people then became isolated use.
Oh, yeah,
how quickly did you start to see consequences, and what were they? Were either effects in work, effects on family, you as a son, you in work, losing jobs, and also physically? Because we hear a lot, Marcus, don't we, about the physical effects of ketamine.
It was quick. It was like I was 17. By the time I was 18, I had a problem, but I didn't see it as a problem. It was every weekend, but it was. And I was weeing more, going to the toilet constantly, and then people were noticing, oh, you're weeing a lot. But at that time, I didn't actually know that ketamine done that to your bladder. It has a really bad effect on your bladder. So the toilet trips, the stomach cramps, you get horrendous stomach pains, and they're the worst pain I've ever had in my life.
Sorry, mate, was you not associating at the time? Obviously, because there's a lot more awareness around the physical effects. So when you first started taking ketamine, was you totally unaware of the actual physical damage that it caused?
I was unaware. I didn't know. Until I was 19 or 20, I didn't know it done that to you. But I was frequently going to the toilet, and then the jobs I'd get, I'd be going to the toilet all the time, and then I'd be using on the weekend. So I'd be going to the toilet constantly through the week in work, and then the bosses would be like, oh, have you got a bladder problem? And it was that's causing it, but it didn't.
What was you thinking it was? Because obviously you would notice a change.
I thought I had diabetes, to be honest.
Was it?
Yeah, that's what I went to doctors twice and said I'm a diabetic. He said no, and then the third time I rang again, and he done a test, and he said no. He said, are you sure, like, it's not anything else? And it was only when I googled it one day, because the boss in work, the other fella who I was working with, I was his apprentice, he said to me, you're going to end up on a bag. I said, what do you mean by that? he went, Google it when you get in today, because he knew what I was up to, so I Googled it. And then I knew from there then, but that obviously, it just got worse and worse and worse.
Can I just ask them, so once you then associated the physical effects of going to the toilet and the pains that you had, you then knew that that was down to the ketamine?
Yeah.
You carried on using after that?
Yeah, because
when you say, like, when you know you've got an addiction, is the horrible thing about addiction is you don't really realise it's a problem until it's too late, and until, as you said there, it's developed.
Do you know what, Mark? The thought from my addiction at the time was, I'll never have to get my bladder removed, so I'll continue. But I would have.
You know, when you say the thought from my addiction is the thought.
It's just blagging me.
Not like them.
Yeah, and for people who may be watching this for the first time and maybe don't know a lot about Break Free and how we work, you know, you've already heard Marco there separating himself from the addictive thoughts and the addictive voice. When we talk about AV, it's the thoughts and voices getting generated by the addiction, and there it is talking him out of stopping, claiming that the consequences that he's suffering aren't down to his addiction, aren't down to his ketamine use, and that it's in there saying, that'll never really happen to you. Tell us a bit about the cramps, because you hear a lot about this. Like, talk to us about them. Can you open up about how painful, because what we're seeing, Mark, isn't it, is where people who have developed a really bad ketamine addiction, one of their biggest battles is the only way their addiction tricks them into continually using, claiming that the only relief they can get from the cramps that are getting caused by the ketamine is to use again. Is that where, can you relate to that?
Yes, 100%. Them cramps are for a start, the worst pain I've ever had in my life. They're horrendous. You're rolling around the floor, hot water bottles, baths, even putting kettles on your stomach, roasting hot to try and get rid of them. But as you said there, the blag is take more to get rid of the pain, but that's not the case. You temporarily, and then it comes back 100 times worse. So you're constantly in this vicious circle of like taking ketamine to get rid of it, then it's back, and then you're thinking, well, I've got the pain again, so I need it again. And
the problem with that is, a lot of the time with an addiction, like with me and you, go and have a drink, you won't go mad. Total fucking blag, because we always went mad. Total lie.
Yeah.
With the ketamine, what I've experienced, which is what you'll know, it's an anaesthetic. It's used as pain relief. It's one of the strongest pain reliefs that there is. So it actually, the pain and pleasure balance in the brain's like a seesaw, isn't it? So the more in pain you are, the pleasure release balances it out, counteracts it. But it's like, as you said there, so it actually isn't all a blag. It actually does alleviate the pain because it's such a strong painkiller, but then makes the pain worse. It's like a quick fix. Isn't it, type of thing?
Yeah, it's like you're in that much pain, so it's just the perfect excuse for your addiction to think, I need more. But then if you just quit altogether, you don't have to go through them pains.
Because it's, with the addiction side of things, is it's not, like at the start, it's not just chasing the pleasure of the drug. I assume then it's escaping the pain that the drug is causing. So it's not just pleasure seeking behaviours, it's escaping the pain that they're in as well. So it's a double sword type thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like that. So I first got the cramps, it must have been about, I think I'd been using on and off for 2 years, and then I was using daily, and that's when I first got them, but I didn't know what they were. Yeah. So I went to the hospital, and at the time a lad said to them, no, I haven't done nothing. And they were like, you must have, because you're not just going to be in pain like this. And it was only when I got out, used again, went, and then was back in the next day. That's just the circle I was going in constantly.
It's very relatable in a sense of like situations that I've shared and yourself, where the consequences of my drinking and my cocaine use have took me into hospital. Yeah. Like, I've been in the house consistently drinking, using, not sleeping, psychotic, paranoid, and then my heart has started racing away, and then I'll lie on the couch flat until my heart settles down. I'll then use again, and it then got to a point where it's brought on almost a panic attack, but my heart won't settle. So then my missus has gone, I've rung an ambulance. I've ended up in hospital, curtained off, blowing into a bag, having to say I've been using cocaine. And then once my heart settles down again, the addiction's already in there. Once my heart settled in hospital, plotting and planning how I can get more cocaine as soon as my heart settles. So it's once the addiction is developed to that level, the consequences don't matter. It doesn't matter what it takes off you. It's hard to take your life off you. And then how long was it after that you used again?
4 days later.
4 days later, because when you understand the science and the brain and how we work, you will understand that no matter what the consequences are, and people listening will relate to that. Have you ever had your partner go to you when you've had the worst weekend ever and you've been using, drinking, you haven't gone to work, there's been chaos, carnage, fighting, police have been there, and you're like, you've begged your way midweek and promised, and in that moment you genuinely believe, like, I'm done, I promise you, love. And then the next weekend you do it again, and maybe your mum or your parents or your partner say to you, after what happened last weekend, how could you possibly do that again?
It's because if you split the brain into two, like the way we work, isn't it? There's the midbrain, the primitive brain, with your reward centre, and the prefrontal cortex. The part of the brain where the addiction is doesn't understand consequence. So that's why I don't chase this. I don't believe in chasing rock bottom, because if it's not understanding consequence, where does it, as I say,
But it only ends in death.
Because I know 14 people who've lost their life.
Yeah.
Now, that's rock bottom.
Yeah,
Like,
I totally agree, because
for me, it's the part of the brain where your addiction lives. It doesn't understand consequence. Waiting for that to go, fucking all right, okay, we've had enough here, we'll stop.
And I think understanding that and knowing that is huge, because how many rock bottoms did you think you'd had? Like, how many times have you gone to yourself, oh, you know what, that's it, and you've said to your missus, yeah,
but you know what to say. The thing is, when you were saying that, like, probably how many times have you been in that situation where you're in an absolute state of misery and depression, and you're like, I'm done, I'll never do it again. You'd pass a lie detector test because you're not lying. When you promise people I won't do it no more,
You believe it, don't you?
You believe it, because
in the
you're
moment.
that part of the consequence. The addiction's being fed, and that's being fed, and that quietens down. You're left with the consequences going, fuck this, I'm never doing this again. You aren't lying. You'd pass a mad and telling, you'd pass a lie detector test.
Yeah, because that part of your brain, the rational you, genuinely in that moment, desperately wants to quit.
Yeah.
It's like when people come to us, like I was, like you, like we all were. I genuinely wanted to stop. I did, but my addiction didn't. And when you understand there's me here at the front of my brain that wants to quit and is desperate to stop, and my addiction's not interested. It just wants to continue to use and ask, and that's why you try and commit suicide. It still asks. You end up with the worst pains in your life. It's crippling you, but you still use. The addiction goes, I don't care about the consequences. I'm going to continually ask you until you can start learning, understanding, and fighting back.
Mark Humber said something before outside about it'll push you to the limits and then eventually as you said, you'll lose your bladder, or you'll lose your kids, or it'll push you to the point where you lose everything, and then it goes, you've already lost everything now anyway. You've already lost your bladder, or you've already lost your business or your house. And then it uses that then as leverage to get you to...
It almost talks you in a self-sabotage way then.
Absolutely.
Well, you've fucked it now anyway. Yeah. How many times have you heard that over the years when you've used and drank and you promised you wasn't going to, when you haven't gone to work again, and you're sitting there and you don't stop because you go, well, you know what?
Well,
the addiction's
you'd fuck up and you'd be missing, and everyone would know that you've used, and it's like, well, I might as well carry on.
So you know anyway.
Yeah.
It had me blagged on the opposite side. So when you like at that worst stage, then you might as well keep using. But then on the opposite to that, it was like, well, look how well you're doing. For the latter years, it was like, look how well you're doing. You've done this, you've done that. You're fine. You haven't got a problem. Keep using. And at that point, I was using from like the moment I woke up before I brushed my teeth to the moment I'd brush my teeth, and then I'd use before I'd fall asleep.
Tell us a bit about your garden, to where you got started. How did you get started, and how did it develop and stuff?
The good thing here is we've got two real sort of different ages here. Like, you're a little bit older.
Steady on.
A little bit. I'm miles older. He's a bit older than you. But
got a good mix.
Like, it's two interesting stories around this. As Marcus said, where did your use start?
The first time I took ketamine, and there were other drugs, was I was 17 years of age when I first took ketamine. But ketamine was never the problem at the start. There was other forms of abuse with different drugs. For example, amphetamines, cocaine. There was times where I'd really abused them for days on end, never really looking back and thinking, was that addiction? As I say, it started socially. You'd go out, you'd do this, you'd do that. That would spiral out of control. And then, I was selling amphetamine. I was selling, tablets. I was selling cocaine. Next thing you're always, you're consistently using as much as you're selling. You're fighting. You're doing all these different things. And then on the flip side, it's affecting, your family life, your family. I used to, my story was like, I lived with my nan for, a number of years. There was, there's still a lot of emotion there, with me nan, which we all know. It makes me emotional now talking about it.
I remember the time we had a really, after the meeting, once we stayed behind, I won't go into personal details, but I remember when I first met you, Garth, when you first started the programme, and the change in people, because you're very closed off.
Yeah.
We all develop ways of protecting the addiction, a lot of ego,
it was like
joke mask, or
protection mechanisms. They were like,
exactly, yeah.
With me, there was like, I think starting from like an early age, I was always kind of left to my own devices kind of thing. My mum had her own struggles. She, unfortunately, my mum died through addiction, alcohol addiction and stuff. So, through the years, me and my brother were kind of left to our own devices. And then you kind of just, that through those years that there is a lot of hurt as well, in different forms. And then you build up, you build up the wall, you build up those protection mechanisms, and you don't allow anybody in. You become emotionless. People, commented, for years, you just got like a swinging brick. You know what I mean? But real deep down, I was like an emotional person. You
Absolutely.
know what I mean? There's a big heart in there, but I'd kind of built all these mechanisms to kind of protect me because of a lot of the hurt that had happened over the years. And I think, looking back, when you really kind of strip it back in the program and you look back at how what happened, the trauma, the certain things that happened in your life that kind of potentially led you through to addiction, then you can start. You have to sort your addiction first, of course, but you can start stripping those things back.
You said there about like people comment. What I said when I first met you, you see it a different, very closed off.
Yeah.
You meet people's egos a lot early on in the program. But when people made that comment like swinging brick, and then I remember people very said similar stuff to me. It was Chris Farrell, I think, said to me I was a psychological train wreck. But you said, why aren't you sad? And I was like, I always felt sad. But he was just saying it was like the people who were the hardest to love are the ones who need it the most. I remember hearing that and think, landed that, because it's like you're a very emotional guy, but the people who've been hurt a lot, certainly from a young age, will develop ways to try to keep themselves safe. A lot of the time keeps you stuck. But then when you, as you say, come into the program, get the addiction under control, you start to gain trust in other people and you start to open up and get vulnerable. It's like there's magic there. And I remember the conversation we had, and it was after the meeting one night, and I'll always remember that. And you really, once you get the addiction under control and you can get really sort of intimate with people on those levels, those type of conversations, you get vulnerable. Everything starts to come to the surface then.
I just thought that was wonderful what he said there. I mean, like, it was really vulnerable. It was really honest. It was like that's...
I'm by no mean fixed. I'm still, there's still loads to work on. There's plenty of areas that I can be better emotionally.
Me too.
And show that as well to me family.
People always say, don't do the work, never stops. But it's it's like, we like memes, don't we? People are like, I've done the work, but it's that, like you've just said, we always promoting this. The work doesn't stop. There's so many things, like, get your addiction under control, but there's a lot of healing. Life's constantly changing, relationships are changing, circumstances, behaviours
that you've developed in addiction.
Triggers and things come to the surface that, like, sometimes you think, I thought I'd dealt with that, but thinking and feeling, like, things, emotions, stores in the body, it's totally different. Yeah.
Tell us about once you started using ketamine. Did you start feeling any of the consequences Marco was talking about?
My addiction for years had me blagged that I was a professional addict. Do you know what I mean? Like
a high functioning addict.
Like a high function addict, to the point that, like, I could operate and do all these things, but then also, looking around, deep down, the addiction just used to, like, look at other people, like, like that, going through those things and think,
use that as an excuse.
You're not as bad as them. Look at them. But at this point, I am consuming ketamine near enough for every hour, and then most hours, apart from the hours that I'm asleep.
Did you say you'd get up before you brush your teeth? You'd be
Yeah. So I'd make sure that there was ketamine there for when I woke up. Do you know what I mean? And I'd be going to sleep with ketamine there for the next day, kind of thing. And then once that's gone, to getting out the door and then bang straight into it again, picking ketamine up at like 8-9 o'clock in the morning, and then like consuming it all through the day. Do you know what I mean? Hiding myself away, in offices and stuff.
Do you think,
mad.
and throwing this into the room, do you think that the fact that people tend to be able to, or the addiction can claim that they can function more on ketamine than, say, if you're drinking non-stop and you're going to work, it's very easy to spot somebody who's under the influence. When I was using cocaine and drinking, there was no getting away from it.
Can't blend it.
I couldn't speak properly. I couldn't function. I didn't want to go anywhere. I was paranoid. Is there a sense, you mentioned using ketamine going to work. You mentioned using ketamine going to work. Do you think that is...
When you look at the what I'm like with the science behind things and the chemical structures of the drug, because when more and more ketamine addicts were coming into the program, we were very much cocaine, alcohol, cannabis, the tools, the dopamine, the dopaminergic sort of responses, the reward center, right, okay, this works. And then as we were dealing with more ketamine addicts, I was like, this is different. All right, the addiction and the tools and the voices and stuff I thought, but the effects of the drug is different on these people. So it's not even sort of a bit like a blag, is it? It's more focused on glutamate than dopamine as well, isn't it, apparently, ketamine? So the people can take it and the effects will spike and wear off. So it is. I wasn't a ketamine addict, used it, but you all know that. Well, you just said yourself you were more functioning, so people are able to.
That was what stood out for me then in his comment was the addiction's in there. It's not so much telling him to. He is still using daily before he's brushed his teeth, but the actual addiction is convincing him that, well, I'm still going to work. You're still functioning. Your kids aren't going for anything. You're still being creative. And at that point, that's probably where your continual use. When did that turn? Because if your addiction's got you convinced that, well, you know what, you're still up, you're going to work, you're not missing work, the kids still get everything they need, you're picking the kids up from school, business is going well, but you're using daily. At what point did you, the rational part of you, the frontal cortex we talk about, the real you, go, hang on a minute, or was that in there for a while going, this isn't right, this, do you understand what I'm on about, Gav?
Yeah,
what point did you then go? Because if your businesses are flying and you're looking, you're functioning, and you.
What was the point?
What was the point where you went? Hang on a minute.
You say, when I say businesses were flying, yeah, they were doing well, but I was just getting by.
Yeah.
Looking at the businesses now in comparison to back in addiction, they're like night and day.
Yeah.
It's like, because I'm at my fullest now. You know
Fantastic.
What I mean? And
I love that. I love that.
Looking back then, it would have been completely. Things would have just happened completely.
You don't know what you're capable of until you quit. Your addiction will convince you. You know what? You're doing well in business, but you don't know your creativity. I always talk about it, don't I?
It consumes too much capacity of your brain. Also, again, from the effects the ketamine has on the brain with this glutamate. So it's like it'll flood the brain. So like the disassociation or the ketol, or the disassociation where people are quite distant, atrophy of the prefrontal cortex, there's the decision maker, and the hippocampus, memory, so forgetfulness. So these, and because the glutamate affects sorry for the sciencey bit, but it's like the messenger, so it affects the entire brain. So the ketamine addiction is affecting all areas, like the decision making, the memory, the disassociation, the concentration, also obviously the normal effects of the dopamine, the reward center. So the damage that the drug is doing to people, where you're saying like the capacity to think, focus, your motivation, like most addictions, but you'll see it with people in the program, but depending on what stage they're at with it, they're taking on the information of the tools, because it's sometimes very disassociated from like reality, like the anesthetic type of the drug. And that's what I remember thinking when I was speaking with people, even when they weren't under the influence, they were very vague. And as you were saying, like getting by, convincing you, I'm sound, I'm still doing this and doing that. But now you're understanding yourself that
the night and day is the bit that I loved.
Yeah.
Is like, because if you think back, now we're talking about what your life was like when you were using daily, like you just said. and you think your addiction's in there convincing you that, you know what, I'm not that bad, I'm still functioning, work's still okay. But now, obviously, you've quit and quit for good. And you know, your business is obviously now, I always say you realise how creative and ambitious and constructive and reliable and trustworthy and like, it's like, I know everything I've achieved over the past 10 years and 9 of them I haven't drunk or took a drug. I wouldn't have any of them, and you probably just, that's exactly what you mean. You just don't realise, do you?
What, so, going back to that same point, you say your businesses were doing all right, but not like they are now. What when it was convincing you that you were a high-functioning addict, what eventually was the undeniable point of, this has to stop? Can you remember?
Where I thought I was functioning and I thought I had it all under control, that I could go out and operate and do all these things, then it was becoming more and more apparent that it was all falling apart. You know what I mean? Like, more, it completely, it'd gone past the point of it not even being asked about, like, where I'm doing it or what I'm doing or how much I'm doing. Do you know what I mean? And you with ketamine and stuff, you build up tolerances, and you know you have to consume more and more over time, and then next thing you know, now you're consuming more and more, and then it's become more apparent people are getting onto it even more.
Talk to me about the people getting onto it. This is sort of where we're trying to get you to sort of, so the consequences are now starting to get noticed by other people and yourself. Talk to me about what sort of consequences.
Yeah, at the time I was doing, you know, there was doing building works and stuff. You know, we'd have, you know, projects on. I'd be going into, you know, into those projects, dropping in. You know, there'd be trades in there doing works, etc. And I'll be walking in, you know, having consumed ketamine, you know, under the influence, walking in there. You know what I mean? At times, you know, without kind of realizing or not really giving a fuck that you're walking around with, you know, with like white rings around your nose, you know, in professional environments, to the point where, you know, people are now talking, you know, between themselves. You know, you're going in there as essentially the, you know, the leader, the project manager, or the kind of, you know, it's a level of responsibility, you know, and to a certain extent, you know, you kind of, you hold a level of respect as well, you know. It's your project, you know what I mean, and that, you know, they're being paid by you, they're delivering for you, etc. You know, you've got a level of expectation from them, and you're walking in there under the influence of ketamine, you know, with ketamine around your nose, you know, and things like that. So, you know, it got to a point there where now people are starting to talk, you know, you're losing all of that kind of respect that you built up with people. And then, you know, you start making, you know, stupid, silly mistakes that you would never have made before. Do you know what I mean? And I've you know, I relationships that I've now kind of repaired to a certain extent, but, you know, fell out with, you know, former business partners and stuff over addiction, to the point that, yeah, you know, it had become too much. You know, I was slipping too much. You know, I was doing stupid things. You know, I was turning up to site, as I say, you know, with, you know, ketamine around my nose and stuff like that.
To the point where
I just wasn't. You
can't hide it no more.
Just, yeah, I just wasn't even asked.
Yeah.
It was like, so
I think that's the point where
what are you gonna do about it?
There's you and the
like,
addiction,
yeah.
where, well, nobody knows. I'll hide it and blend it to the point where the addiction is basically just consumed you, and you're basically just an addiction at that point, wrapped up in your skin.
Yeah.
And again, not giving a fuck about the consequences there, but then it's affecting everything. Then at that point,
can you remember the point where you decided to reach out?
Yeah,
Like when you thought, you know what?
very well. We were talking about it before, weren't we? So I was staying in my flat at the time, not last Christmas, in a knees deep in addiction, and I woke up on the Wednesday morning and just said, like, I've had enough. I'm sick of this now. Packed everything, went to my nan's because she wanted me out the flat anyway because she knew what I was getting up to. So when I went in, she said, are you gonna stop? I said, yeah, whatever. Didn't believe me. Well, no one did at first, and then I come back on the programme. I'd already tried once before, hadn't I?
That's, you know, when we were talking before about the disassociate, and like, remember in your graduation you said, like, lost, and I said, remember that the first time you joined the programme, you were like a lost soul, mate, wasn't you?
Yes, didn't.
And that's what I remember, like in the meetings, like very distant but lost is I would describe
Even
it.
the problem with ketamine as well, as you said there in the meetings the first time, even if you haven't used for a certain amount of time, you still can't think properly. It affects the short-term memory. So in the meetings, as you said, I was sat there, but I'd be trying to listen, but I couldn't. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I woke up on the Wednesday morning, said I've had enough, and then I rang my dad, and he dropped me off at the park then on the Saturday. So that was it then for me. I'd had enough then, just got on the programme, put the work in, stopped. But the best thing for me was understanding the addiction, like when you come on and learning the science behind it. Because how can you beat something if you don't understand it?
Beautiful. Hey,
We always say it, don't we?
we always say.
What was the difference, mate, between the first time you joined and the second time? What was the shift in the mindset for why you absolutely smashed it out the park the second time but really struggled the first time? What was the difference?
God's honest truth, I hadn't had enough. Didn't want to stop. I just like I was blagged by my addiction. I'd be okay to drink. I'd be okay to moderate and do all these things it tells you can do when you can't. You know what I mean? You just can't, can you? You know what I mean? You don't do that. You stop and that's it. You've had enough.
So you've actually come into the programme, which is an abstinence programme, already coming in, committing to carrying on. It's, you know what I mean? So you're
basically
quitting, but already committing to carrying on. So
you know what, Mark? It was like I didn't understand. Well, I got told the first time, like when you've had an addiction, a drug addiction, you can't drink. Simple as that. And the first time I come on, I was just like, I can. Clearly, you can't. Obviously, it doesn't work like that, does it? Your addiction, you drink, you'll use. Simple as that.
It was. I remember it was like I'd wanted to give up for so long because, like, outside of business and stuff, a lot of it did affect, you know, my family and stuff, my partner. You know, I put her through the mill kind of thing, and you know, it was kind of really getting to a point where she'd had enough as well. I'd wanted to give up. You know, that me wanted to give up. My true self wanted to give up. You know, there was times for like in the latter years that I'd buy ketamine. You know, I've like a little bit and then go and throw the whole bag away.
Yeah,
I've done that myself.
It happens so many times, and then let's say an hour later, I'd be scratching around thinking, "Wow, what the fuck? Why have you just thrown that away?"
I've bought it.
Do you know what I mean? And then I've gone out and bought it again.
Yeah, I've done the same.
It's like, that there?
It's you and the addiction.
Yeah, it's you fighting with your addiction.
The addiction's active.
battle.
You use, you feed the appetite, and it's the you going, "What the fuck have I done?"
Yeah,
And then I'll throw that away, and then once it, what have you done there? You need to get more. Then you know, it's that constant. But without, as you said there, without understanding of addiction and without awareness, you're living in that constant torment. You for years.
I think one of the beautiful things when people come to our programme, and let's call it the light bulb moment of you reach out, you come, and it is daunting. Do you know, it's like, it's a very intense programme. It's like me and Mark has set this programme up for a level of support because we know how hard it is when the addiction's developed to these levels where it's used to getting fed off the back of lots of emotions, good day in work, bad day in work, pissing down with rain, sunny, the footy's on, the matches on, the boxing's on, an argument at home, and it steps in and just automatically expects to be fed. So we've set a programme up that's give you that level of support at your fingertip 24 hours a day, 3 meetings, a walk, gym sessions, 24-hour one-to-one support at all moments at your fingertips. In them moments.
For me, it wasn't just about what you just said there. How do you fix something you don't understand? How can you control something?
Give me your analogy of the car bonnet, because it makes me laugh.
This is how I used to
because I'm so bad with cars. I'm like, anyone could tell me anything, but it's a brilliant analogy.
So this is what I used to feel like. So I was going to recovery services and getting support. Like, you get it all going, come on, it'll be all right. But sometimes it weren't all right. And I didn't just need support, I needed answers. I needed solutions, and I'm a bit of a critical thinker. So it was why am I doing this?
Why?
How can I be adamant I'm not going to do this and do it again? And it was like, why can't I am I lying to myself? Why can't I control this? Why do I keep doing this? So it was like, I could go outside and get in my car, turn the engine on, the engine not start. Now I could tell any of you that the car's broke. but I could look under the bonnet and it's just wires and metal. I couldn't tell you what's wrong with it. I wouldn't know where to start to fix it. You could offer me £1 million to fix the car and I'd try, but I wouldn't be able to. But if you teach me how to fix the car, you get a mechanic who
help
can fix
you
it,
understand.
help me understand the problem so I can fix it. So then once I started to, it wasn't just support I needed answers, understanding, solutions,
Awareness.
tools, awareness, all of these like trauma, all of these things that we're teaching. To be like the mechanic in your head, have awareness of like when it comes in, right, there's that, I know the tool for the job, fast forward the tape, all the stuff that we teach. But other than that, you're living in like, it was like white knuckling, just holding on to the fact that I know I can't drink, I know I shouldn't be using drugs, but not understanding the brain.
And that isn't sustainable.
No, it's not. And it's not enjoyable, and it's not sustainable. No. And this is why it's falling off your wagon so normalised, because you can't live in that level of fucking battle forever. Or some do. I've seen some people years into it, but you don't want to just stop drinking and taking drugs but still feel like you're a prisoner to it. You want to be free from it, don't you?
Talking about that freedom that we talk about tonight, it's one of the most beautiful things. And when we talk to people in the programme, being through the programme, talking about me or yourself, people say, what's one of the biggest rewards? What's the biggest reward? And nearly every single time it's freedom from the battle. Not
peace of mind.
Peace of mind. Not having that battle where you are arguing with the addiction. Not having that is like, that's where I actually firmly believe that that's where the creation comes from. When you regain that space, think how much time was consumed by constantly arguing with your addiction, even when you desperately didn't want to, and you'd be fighting all weekend, going to matches on, your missus has gone to work, just have a little go, no I don't, you know what'll happen, she'll kick me out again, and you've got this constant argument with the addiction. It's torturous.
God, you were talking about that outside. The amount of time it freed up for you when you wasn't using all day, and the mental
removing
capacity,
all that for
space.
good. Yeah. The space it leaves, so you can go and fill that with what you want. Do you want to be creative? Do you want to travel the world? Do you want to go and learn? Do you want to? What do you want to do with it? But you've got to get this. You've got to win that space back, and that's the beautiful thing when you're saying, it's night and day now, because now you've got all the space.
What's that? As you say, we've talked about the torment and obviously the habits and the chaos that it was causing you, and the physical effects as well. What's the peace like?
I said that to you before, didn't I? I was like, how did I was like, how did I have all those hours in the day and not like, and still do everything that I was doing? How does that work? You know what I mean? And then you remove all of that out, and it's like, right, I've got all this free headspace, I've got all this time, you know, where you can just now do everything, the things that you want to do, spend more time with family, you know, be more creative, and, you know, and action more things. You got more conviction, more clarity, more creativity. You know, you've got all these different things now, and that's where, you know, like I said, you know, it's the business is all night and day, but, you know, remove the business, you know, the relationship is night and day. And the way I see it, and by no means is it perfect, but it's a million times better, is that, you know, if you create that happy space, you create that happy home and stuff, and if the home is in a good place,
life is
in
no, you're
general,
right. If
I can go out and
I always
be
say
the
that
best version of myself if I've got the full backing and I've got a happy home and a peaceful home.
1,000,000%. Talking about that peace of mind that we talk about, and tell me how do you ever struggle anymore? Do you ever like, you've been through the program, like you've graduated through the program, you've understood the tools, understood the science with our science guru, like there's nothing he doesn't understand or know or is able to explain. The support you get, the understanding, the awareness around the addiction, that the addiction just wants to try and get you into a conversation somehow, whether that's a conversation to claim you weren't that bad, a conversation to say that you'll be able to moderate it now, you'll be okay to drink now, it was the using that was the problem. It wants to get you into a conversation, and if it gets you into a conversation for long enough, it will then convince you that you're not going to get the consequences that you used to. Like, so the freedom is not having that battle anymore. Lots of people don't believe it. There's people who go, there's no way they don't struggle. People say to me, there's no way you don't go to work and you don't think you can't drink, Daniel. I say, of course I can. It's not a can't. There's no can't. I can't drink. I choose not to. No part of me wants to drink. There's zero desire for me.
Isn't it? Everyone's perception's based on their experience. So if your perception of recovery is that I haven't drank and used for years, but they're still maybe battling and there's desire there, but they've developed ways to keep their addiction at arm's length. But
even the fear about going to places, that's no good. That's no good. The fear to go places in case you drink and use is just alien to me.
Yeah.
Like, do you feel like that as well?
No, it's
There's no fear of drinking or using again.
Well, that's the good thing about the program as well, though. Like, you can go anywhere you want when you've done it. You've applied yourself properly and you use the tools, you'll be sound, and it helps you rationalise other situations in your life as well. Like, just things that used to annoy me don't annoy me anymore, because once you use the tools and you break it down and you look at it properly, you feel better, don't you?
Beautiful.
I think if you're doing the recovery this way and you're changing a lot of these behaviours, then your personality changes, and as you say, you're not only dealing with the thoughts around the addiction, you're more rational and you're more regulate your emotions better, less ego, less reactiveness, so you become a better person. So as you say, it's not you're not just seeing the rewards of not using no more and not having to suffer the consequences of it, but then obviously organically life then goes the other way and starts to improve, but you become a better person. You're actually like yourself again. You know what I mean?
I remember before I joined Break Free, I was trying out other programs, should we say.
Yeah.
And I still know that people, in other programs, and it 100% didn't work for me. I've got that kind of science-based mind to want to understand. It's not like a belief system doesn't work for me, if you haven't got those beliefs. But I look at people still in those programs and they have to go to a daily, if not one meeting, multiple meetings. And I was looking at it and I was thinking, this is not working for me. And I was like, how can I get, with how busy I am, how can I go to that every day? And it's not living your life free at all.
It's trying to empower the person.
Yeah.
As you say,
it's not freedom at all in comparison now. I am free from my addiction 100%, but I never was. Look at, if we go back to some of the times when we were in the program. I remember the first conversation I had with Lee. I'd started the program on the Thursday, and then that was my first meeting. Bear in mind, I was still under the influence in that first meeting. You could tell, everyone could tell. I nearly had a scrap with Kev, I think, at my first meeting, and me and Kev still laugh about it.
Straighteners in the hub.
Me and Kev were just staring at each other like that. What's your problem? You know what I mean? It was like that. But then on the Friday, because I knew I was going to the boxing on the Saturday, so it was like, well, you might as well still use it. And you belled me, and I was walking around Cheshire Oaks at the time, and I was just consuming ketamine all day, going to boxing. And you were like, you belled me, and you're like, well, I'll start next week. I'll start Monday. And you were like, what are you doing? What are you doing? It starts now. You know what I mean? And I was like, don't let everyone, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, right, it starts now. You either do it or you don't, kind of thing. Because it will always be Monday. Absolutely. It will always be Monday.
If you're a daily user, there's always there's always going to be another day, every day.
Yeah. I think one of the things I always really, really drive home is being able to recognise that voice that constantly tries to talk you out of recovery, out of reaching out. We get loads and loads of reach outs individually, personally, or into the program of people who are dying to quit. But then you have an interaction with them and say, yeah, listen, blah, 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 or personal. Lots of us spend time just personally speaking to people. But then the moment between them desperately wanting to stop, I was the same. The shit I did to fan, I'd caused chaos, to be mad, I wouldn't go home, smashed trust, relationships I'm in my mum's, my missus is going to leave me, solicitors are involved, I've lost my businesses, I'm absolutely broken. I'm broken. And someone may suggest a recovery program. And the addiction's job is to then talk you out of it. If it can talk you out of it, it's not mentioning drink or drugs, whether it talks to you negatively about your life without drink. Oh, you'd be boring, you won't be able to go anywhere, you can't go to the match again, festivals.
You don't need it, you're not that bad.
You ain't that bad. This same voice that people watching the podcast will go, oh my God, I've wanted to reach out for ages, but I constantly hear that statement. You ain't that bad, you can't go to meetings. What if someone knows you? You can't. And this voice that works so hard at talking you out of getting the support is the same voice that talks you back into drinking and using.
Most people who join, I'd say, have had previous reach outs, like they've reached out before, they've sent an email and joined
them a few times, and I think filled out the form and done all that, and then I'd not send the form, You know what I mean? I was never.
But in that moment when you don't send it, the rational part of your brain is like, I need to stop, I need to do this. But then the addiction's there behind it, and it's saying to you, oh, you know what, why don't you just see if you can do it once a month? Just cut back. It's because you keep using. Stop using daily. Just maybe do it once a month when you've got something to look forward to. I mean, if you stop it, that's it. What about the lads in your social life? And there it is there. And you think that's you. You genuinely think that is you. Like when I had that call with you, your addiction is fighting to say, well, you may as well just wait till next week. Or you think that's you. You think, well, you know what?
If you think that's you, you'll follow that instruction.
Of course, and that's the
pivotal
thing.
You'll follow the thought, won't you? You'll make the choices.
When Marco's saying, it's once I understood. Once you're aware of your opponent, and you're like, hang on a minute, there it is, there's my addiction. And we give you these tools to actually compete and win. What comes with that winning is an abundance of rewards.
Because there's a thing, isn't it? Like the quality, is it Marcus Aurelius, is it? Like the quality of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. But if you don't understand what them thoughts are, or maybe the quality of the choices you make on the back of those thoughts, if you don't understand addiction and you've got these thoughts coming through your brain around of, oh, you'll be okay, you don't need that, you'll be sound, not as bad as them, you won't be, you'll be all right to cut back. And if you don't understand that, and you're letting your addiction make them thoughts and making your choices for you, this is why you live in them cycles of, why do I keep doing this?
That was one of the biggest things for me, was when understanding it all and then saying, like, you've got an opponent. It's you versus him.
Yeah.
And I am a competitive fucker,
guy,
to be fair. Like, and as soon as I got my head around that, I was like, wow, you're not having me off.
Yeah.
Like, you know, because even through the program is like, oh, what? So I can't go to golf. So I can't go and play pool, because that's the blag it had in through the program.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'm going to these places, but they were not the reasons why I ended up in, you know what I mean? So it was constantly blagging me. So then
I always say the addiction loves the can't wait, especially when you're first reaching out, or you really want to quit, and then you go, you know what, I'm going to sign up for this program, whether it's Break Free, AA, CA, 12 steps, Add Action, whatever it is, whatever you go, I'm going to do this, and then the addiction comes in and goes, oh, you'd be boring if you quit. Well, what are you going to do? You won't be able to go nowhere.
You'll never support.
You'll never be able to go to golf again. You won't be able to play golf. You won't be able to go. You'll never be able to go to the match. But the thing is, if you do it properly, and it's not a can't for me. Like we say to people in the program when their addiction's in there, going, well, you're telling me that I can't go, and we're saying, we're not telling you can't go. We're asking you to put your recovery first and choose not to. That's where the power is. You go, you know what, this moment in my recovery, I'm going to choose to not go,
it's because sacrifices, isn't it? Sacrifices early on for long term.
But once the addiction grabs the can't word, it's like, I wish I could, but I can't. And then it feels defeated. Like, I wish I could go there, but I can't. Well, it's not. It's like, you know what? I want to put my recovery first, and I'm gonna make these decisions to empower me. So in the end, I bet you there's no battle now about going to golf, going to match, going anywhere at all, because you now understand the addiction, and you know you'll never drink or take a drug again.
Looking back at those moments that I had made that decision to not go to those places, that was where I excelled more.
Because we said,
absolutely,
when people come to the program, the coping mechanisms, ego, humility trumps the ego, doesn't it? So when you've got someone, listen, I can't stop, can you help me? And we go, yeah, okay, we'll tell you what to do. And they go, no. But you ask someone for help, and then they'll give you the advice. Yeah, and then it's when you have that humility, one of the biggest things the ego is protecting the addiction. And when you go, listen, please just trust us. And then you have that humility of going, right, okay, whether or not you feel like, whether you agree with the information or the advice at that time, just surrender to it and go, listen, okay, look, I'll be humble, I'll follow it. As you say, they're pivotal moments, because it takes the ego away, really exposes the addiction. You take the advice, it works, you're then more motivated, you get more belief in it, you get more confidence, and then before you know it, you can go where you want, do what you want, live your life as you please.
As Marcus explains really well, what actually we're trying to achieve here is just quite simple. It's understanding the addiction, becoming so aware of it, and then training your brain to just see the truth. That's how I always talk about it, especially with new ones. Like, Marcus can give you all the science in the world, or you can go dead simple and understand, okay, there's two parts of your brain arguing, and once you understand this and you become aware of it, lots of the time, that light bulb moment I speak about, loads, you were probably the same. You watch the videos, you listen to the way we speak, there'll be people watching this podcast going, fuck me, that's like exactly the same thoughts that I'm having, and I think that's me. And once you understand that, and understand that, people say to me, don't you struggle in work? And I'm like, why do you talk about my work? You will go the match, the footy, the boxing, to a festival, a live music event, a wedding, a christening, and people will be drinking there. And in today's society, using as well. Using as well. So it's not my job. All I see, and I do go into situations where I'm in work and I'll go to the toilet, but you could do that at a wedding, a funeral, a christening, a baby shower, a concert, a gig, the boxing at the M&S. Everywhere you go, there's people drinking and using nowadays in society. You do this properly and train your brain really to see the truth, using the tools and the guidance we give you. No party will struggle, because I walk into a toilet somewhere and the way society is now, there may be people using openly in a toilet. I just see the misery. That's it. The only link I've got with drinking drugs is the misery that it brought me. So there's no desire to drink or use, none at all.
The problem's not the environment for me. The problem's me.
Brilliant.
It's in the
How
brain,
good's that?
isn't it?
If I fix me, like I can go and do whatever I want in any and go to any environment, and that's
Fantastic.
my mindset. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like I can go wherever I want.
Can you
wherever I
both
want.
remember when you come into the program and it's like, right, you need to commit to never drinking or taking a drug ever again? There's resistance there at the start because it's an addiction. Can you remember hitting a point where you maybe said that and it's like, I meant that. There was no resistance. That freedom. Can you remember it hitting a point like that?
Yeah, it was. I remember it like quite well. I remember walking down with someone on the first walk. That's the first thing he asked me. He says, "I'll never touch it again," which I believed, but it was still a bit like,
There's resistance.
bloody hell. How my addiction was like, well, it's about the third month in, you just know. It's just a feeling,
think,
isn't it? You just know it's over.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, there's just like, you know, deep down. But I think there was a bit of that, but there was still a little bit of resistance for me. And I think that when it first really kind of like formalized was when I started being open and honest with the people around me. Not just family, but then also business partner. You know, being open and honest and say, listen, this is what I've struggled with for a long time, etc. You know, that was me then. This is not me now moving forward.
Because I think if you're fully committed to never again, and it's action reinforces identity, you were talking about action before, if this is, you're never going to drink or use again, why would you hide it?
Yeah.
And once you're totally comfortable with it, it becomes an identity. It just becomes who you are. You're not hiding. There's no need to
I think
hide
what comes
it
with
no
that,
more,
with that, as you can see with the lads, and is it comes a huge sense of pride once you actually learn, understand, start winning, become a better person, a better dad, a better partner, a better son, all these beautiful things that you get. And not only are you reaping the rewards, then so is your partner, your children, work, everything. You're fitter, you're healthier. Once all these things come, I think the acceptance that comes with that, it's like, but you have to go and earn them.
Yeah.
Do you have to really work hard to get them? But once they come, it's like, I'm never giving you this back. And the addiction may speak.
But I think it's pride, isn't it? Look how many people who don't get out. People living in cycles of addiction forever. Millions die. So when your perception is that fucking hell, you know, like there's so many people I know personally who are stuck in addiction. I know, as I said before, 14 people who've lost their lives, and I was fortunate to get out. But as I say, I earned it. No one fucking handed me on a plate, you know what I mean? I earned it. Proud of it. And it's certainly you two lads here, it's certainly the way things are recently, these days in society with this ketamine addiction. For you two lads to sit here, which is why we wanted to do this, is because it's such an inspiration of spreading hope and belief. Do you know,
that openness people? And that honesty that he talks about comes with that sense of pride. There's like, we've laughed about it, like, God help anyone who brings recovery up to us, because I'm bored of living daylights out of them. Like, I'm so proud of my decision to quit. And some people look from the outside in and go, you can fucking shut up about it. But it just, I'm overwhelmingly proud and passionate about the rewards that are there. And I want, and so for the lads to sit here, that pride, that open and honesty with anyone, I'll tell anybody, like, and that's where you've got yourself to a point where you're really proud about your decision to quit and change, and so you should be.
I think it's good on that point when you mentioned rewards there. So we've talked about like how you started an addiction and the consequences of it, going into the program and the work, as you keep always mentioning, the application to the process. And what are the rewards like? What have you got? And it doesn't. For me, as we said before, the biggest reward for me is peace of mind. The relationship I've got with myself now compared to what I used to be with my mind and myself. What are the for the position that he's in now, like the rewards, what is it you got? It can be materialistic things, it can be jobs, but it'll also be
personal stuff.
Personal stuff,
Yeah.
You know what, Mark? It's like the biggest reward for me is getting myself back. So what I found is when I first come into recovery, me interest come back, my confidence come back, the relationships around me. No one was speaking to me at first, for the first 2 weeks or so, because they were still sceptical. I got my family back, just had a boss time at Christmas, as I said, out there. And other stuff as well, like you said, flying in my job, driving. I didn't think I'd ever be driving again, to be honest, until I've done this. Loads of things, but the main one is myself. Feel better in myself.
It's beautiful. Garth, one thing I picked up you said before, and it's dead right. You can talk about, as you said, all the material things. The creative side comes and it excels, and it's beautiful to see. Like all the things you do and you create from a business point of view, you said works better. What comes with that is you're wealthier, you start enjoying more things, and your creative thoughts, you think, I'll act on that. I always had creative thoughts. I was always very creative, never fitting well enough to act on them properly, whether it was a radio station, reminisce, building brands up. Just, I'd have them, and then maybe I'd get a couple of weeks under my belt, I'd get a little bit more creative, and then I'd use and drink again. The whole thing would get scrapped, and that'd be me go missing. But it's the personal things. Like when someone said to me, we talk about rewards, what's one of the biggest rewards you've got? And I say, well, my guarantee that I'll never drink or use again, it's not just mine. Like my wife knows I'll never drink or use again. My wife knows, she's no longer fearful of me going out and not coming home. Like, my children know. Like, gone are the days of me going to work thinking, they know for a fact, like I do. And I've handed them that guarantee that I'll never drink or use again. I've handed, and what's come with that is rebuilt trust. My you know, I've maybe heard you open up meetings about relationships, and I'd smashed the trust to pieces with my wife. I didn't think, and I love my missus more than anything. She's like everything to me, but my addiction didn't care. And as you said, my wife had enough of me drinking and using before I'd had enough of drinking and using. I just kept going and smashing the trust, going missing, and the repair that and the trust and the relationship we have now, me as a dad, it's as you say, not just the material things. They will come, they will, but you as a dad, the relationship you've rebuilt with. I remember when me and you first were talking and stuff, like, and you were like,
I can see Kyle.
Like I'll never forget them conversations and the way you are with them now.
Yeah, no, I remember,
like,
remember those days.
Talk to us about the rewards.
I think is being able to just be better. You know, just being able to have the capacity to be better and know and understand me and learn more about myself. You know, I always kind of use the analogy of, like, you know, stripping back the onion, you know, and really kind of, you know, stripping back the layers and being able to be more attached to my, you know, emotions kind of thing. I know, it's a funny one. On the way back from, you know, from Thailand, I said to Jess yesterday, I was like, wow, I cried twice on the plane, you know, and she had a laugh. She was like, what? I was like, fuck. She was like, what are you watching? I was like, just watching 2 documentaries. I just cried. I was like, what am I doing here?
Bit of Attenborough.
I was like, good job that there's no lights on in the plane. I was there in tears. But I think, you know, it's being more, you know, more connected. Should
as we say from when we first met.
Yeah.
Closed off to.
And I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to cry. You know, like, whereas before, there was nothing that could make me cry. You know,
suppressed so far.
Yeah, I'd suppressed it so much, and I wouldn't so hard faced. But now,
beautiful.
I'll cry at anything. Do you know what I mean?
Like that. Me and you like that. We're hopeless.
Yeah. But you know what though? It's enjoyable though, like feeling things.
Well, it's real.
It's
real.
It's real. Yeah, not just.
Do you know if we people watching this, and the reason that we were so excited and we're so grateful for you, for the two of you to come on and talk so openly about something that is not just ruining adults' lives, but children now as well. Like in schools, this is an epidemic, and as you said on your video a while back, the consequences physically, health-wise, are going to ruin people's lives further down if we don't get this under control. What message would you give to anyone who's watching this who uses ketamine or any drugs? But we are on the ketamine. We are on the ketamine. We're so proud to be able to talk about this and showcase two people who have completely and utterly beat their ketamine addiction, which we as Mark said at the start, we want to give hope first, Marco, what message would you send to someone?
Stop now while you've got the chance, because what'll happen is you'll lose your bladder first, then you'll die, and it'll kill everything inside of you. That's what the drug does. So if someone's using ketamine, they need to stop before it's too late. You don't want it to get to that point where it is too late.
Walking around with a bag for your rest
Yeah,
of life.
that's what I mean.
That's what it is. That's what you will have to do, is just walk around with a bag strapped to your leg.
I mentioned this to someone.
For the rest of your days.
It's weird. It's how you word this to make it sound right. But when I was speaking to them about the ketamine addiction, and it was I had the luxury, if you want to put it that way, of getting 20 years out of my addiction before I then eventually had enough and stopped.
You won't get that.
You won't get that with ketamine.
No chance.
You won't get a 20
really,
year.
really good comment.
You fucking won't get
Right.
a 20 year, because what we're noticing is these kids, it's 2 years, 3 years, 4 years in.
Yeah.
The future health's ruined.
Irreversible damage, where once the effects, the physical effects of the drug have took the toll, and the shrinkage of the bladder, or it's perforated, it needs removing. The irreversible. And like me and you, up 20 years, you would think you would even longer.
Yeah.
If anyone's watching this who has a ketamine addiction and they're suffering the pains, stop now.
What an
Because
opportunity.
there is hope
to do
here.
it.
There's examples here that you've been in that position, you recognised it, you quit, and now look here.
Boys and girls, men and women. You know what I mean?
It's not just
Like,
kids, not
it's
younger
like-
generations, it's everyone, no?
damage the opportunity to have children and do those reproductive systems and stuff outside of like the bladders and
that's
stuff
another
like that.
thing,
You
yeah.
know what I mean? It's like, what's that going to look like? You're not going to be able to have kids when you're older. And I don't want to sit here and say, like that, these kind of things. But I think if you strip it back, they are the things that can happen. But I understand, like, well, yeah, I do, because I was consumed by the circles that I was in when I was in addiction, because we were just bouncing off each other's addiction.
Yeah.
You know, and I can understand that, you know, the younger kids are so consumed by their friendship circles, and their friendship circles might be everybody just consumes ketamine. That's all that you do.
When we were younger
to
on the
try and
streets,
break away
everyone
from
drank.
that.
12,
Yeah, yeah,
13. So you wanted to fit in, you wanted to belong, you're young.
Yeah.
So again, but the problem is, kids aren't drinking on the street, they're taking ketamine on the street.
Ketamine, yeah.
And it won't happen to me. The children, so they're not thinking along those lines anyway.
You're selfish in addiction, and you've got to be selfish in recovery. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's people that I used to hang around with that I no longer hang around with. You know, are they still friends? Yeah, but do I hang around with them? No. You know, and I think the hard part for the kids is breaking away from that. You
Absolutely.
And I
I've
can
done
understand.
one-to-ones with
I can understand how hard it'll be, because at that age.
Do you think though that the addiction is using that fear of their future without using that they'll lose their circle? The addiction's in there talking them out to stop them, because you lose your circle of friends, you won't be able to go anywhere, you'll have no social life, you'll be stuck in the house,
Well,
and all
I've
these
had-
thoughts stop them from stopping.
I've done one-to-ones with kids. They'll come with the parents, and they've done one-to-ones with them. And that's what these younger kids are saying.
It is, yeah.
Well,
Everyone's
doing it, and I can't be on my own. And it was like, you're giving them the horror stories, and it's like, that hasn't happened to one of my mates.
Yeah.
I said, but
Will though.
in 2 years' time, when the consequence is it, and the reason why this podcast is going to be important is because with all the awareness that's getting brought to the ketamine addiction, as we said at the start, as a deterrent, people are still using, or are already in addiction. But if all we're seeing is the horror stories and no success stories,
Yep.
like we spoke about before, the addiction, well, I'm a high functioner and I'm all right, and it won't happen to me, I won't lose my bladder. It will also use the fact that if they're reading all these things and every single one of them is this fucking death sentence, the addiction will go, well, you're already fucked.
Yeah.
You know,
You may as well continue to use
carry on, because there's no getting out.
there's no hope.
So
well,
we have to show that,
Here it
because
is.
all the thousands and thousands and thousands of people who are currently in ketamine addiction now, who are suffering these things now, if you make a commitment to stop now, you can get out. Because the
100%.
addiction will condition them and make them
Definitely.
believe that, well, I've already fucked now, look, everyone's dying from it, or I'll lose my bladder anyway. So this is why I think it was important to...
Yeah.
We can't just deter people. There's already people already in addiction with it. So what about those people? Give them a bit of belief that, you can get out, yeah.
There was no worse than it could have got, consuming ketamine wise. You know what I mean? Oh yeah, I didn't lose my bladder, but couldn't have got any worse. So I was at the worst part of it all. So to be able to sit here and say that there is a future for somebody in that position, then yeah, 100%.
And that was what we wanted to make sure the message came through that, you know what.
I'll sing that from the mountaintops, you know what I mean? And I'll support whoever I can support, you know, but I'm not going to sit there and support people who aren't willing to help themselves, you know what I mean? I'll give you as much support as I want, but you've got to want it, you know what I mean?
And I think that could be it, but I just wanted to say, like, we're so grateful for you for coming on.
Yeah, we are.
Sharing the message, but sharing some hope and belief, you know, to people. And people will, if they're watching this, will take inspiration from you guys here today, sharing your story and so vulnerable, open, honest. Because we obviously do our podcast and we can share our story. Even though I've used ketamine, I wasn't going to lie and go, oh yeah, I was in the same position.
No, you're right, and we learn.
Yeah,
like we're learning.
Of course,
you know, lots of these conversations that we have with these people and the people that come in, as you said, you know, people look at our program sometimes. I think it's just alcohol and cocaine because there's no awareness around what we're talking about. And here's the evidence here of these two that have come and are now I've got a life free from the battle and also free from the consequences.
And thriving.
Break free saved my life. Simple
Same
as that.
here.
Like, if, you know, I always say that to anyone, do you know what I mean? It did. Because I don't know, like the last 2 years, I don't know what the next 2 years would have looked like if I would have continued doing what I was doing. Simple as that. But it wasn't rosy. You know what I mean?
Never is.
Probably wouldn't be sat here.
I wouldn't be here.
Yeah,
so it carries on, and I hadn't reached out.
But the support is there. Do you know what I mean? And you know, don't be afraid to kind of reach out. You know, I'm happy to.
And watch out for that voice that tries to talk you out of it.
Yeah.
You
know, winning that first battle, reaching out and turning up, it can be, well, it is. Look, boys, thank you so much.
Thanks
so much.
Super proud of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, nice one.